Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ice-Burgh To Go, your daily dose of Pittsburgh Penguins news and analysis. You can find us on YouTube at Inside the Penguins or anywhere you get your podcast from by searching Tip of the Iceberg. Today, I'm going to talk about somebody that I beat the drum for constantly over the last couple of years to make his NHL return, to make that second game, and to get an opportunity with the Pittsburgh Penguins at the NHL level, and that is Valtteri Puustinen. So I've been happy to see him get kind of an extended look here at the NHL level, and I know that he hasn't produced a lot lately. He has gone scoreless in the last 9 games, but I'm here to tell you that what you're seeing right now in Valtteri Puustinen is him staking a claim to a roster spot in the Pittsburgh Penguins lineup. He came up to the NHL this season and immediately began collecting points. He had 7 points, 1 goal, and 6 assists in his first 10 games with the Penguins during this current stint that he's on. He began on the second line with Evgeny Malkin, which showed trust from Mike Sullivan to play him up in the lineup and to play him with the future Hall of Fame center. And then he was bumped down a little bit later following the Christmas break to the third line alongside Lars Eller and the rotating door of left wings that has been the third line to this point of the season. So like I mentioned, he's gone scoreless in his last 9 games. And in that time, he's seen his average ice time drop from 13-19 in his first 10 games with the Pittsburgh Penguins this season to 8-22 in his last 9. So why am I telling you that it seems like he's starting to claim a spot in the Pittsburgh Penguins lineup when he's struggling in all of these categories and seemingly has lost his scoring touch at the NHL level right now? Well, what you've seen is his ice time go down as low as 7 minutes a night for a stretch of games in early January, but you've seen it start to climb more and more in recent games. Not only that, his underlying numbers have actually improved from moving off of Evgeny Malkin's line and down with Lars Eller. Per Natural Stat Trick, when Valtteri Puustinen was with Evgeny Malkin, 67 minutes of ice time at 5-on-5, he had 58.4% of the expected goals for, which is very good. Very, very good. The Penguins outchanced opponents 16-11 in that time and outscored opponents 3-2 in that time. So, not a lot when it comes to scoring more than their opponents, but pretty good underlying numbers with Evgeny Malkin. Since he moved down with Lars Eller, he's played 86 minutes at 5-on-5. Again, this is per Natural Stat Trick. 63% of the expected goals for, a 5% increase, and a very pivotal category whenever you're looking at underlying stats. He's outchancing opponents in that time 45-29, and the Pittsburgh Penguins are outscoring opponents 6-3 in that time. He's doubled his goal scoring. While yes, he's played 19 more minutes with Eller than he has with Evgeny Malkin, doubling your goal scoring by moving down in the lineup. It might not be him in particular that's scoring, but the process that he has put in place alongside Lars Eller, and whether it be Riley Smith for a time, Drew O'Connor for a time, Colin White for a time, Radim Zohorna for a time, that process has led to success for the Pittsburgh Penguins more often than not. But he is at a key point right now. I will say this. The Penguins are at a point with Valtteri Puustinen and his run right now with the lineup where they want to see if he can bounce back from the Callup Wall. Kyle Dubas referenced this wall whenever he was discussing Ryan Shea the first time he was sent down earlier this season on the GM show with friend of the show, Josh Getzoff. He said, sometimes these guys work so hard to get up to the NHL, they have that immediate burst of energy, and then it fades when you get into the monotony of the day-to-day schedule of the NHL. You're playing 3-4 games a week. You're practicing sometimes 1-2 times a week. You get into that schedule, and that highest level, that urgency, tends to fade away. Everybody's human. You tend to get comfortable in your situation when you start doing it time and time again. Dubas mentioned it with Ryan Shea. I think we've seen it with Radim Zohorna this season, where he had a great camp, gets sent down, comes up, was amazing early on with the Pittsburgh Penguins when he came up in the 5th game of the season. Then he started to taper back. Then he started to taper even more. Then he was taken out of the lineup. They gave him another opportunity. He still wasn't able to bounce back, and now he's at the AHL level. He's been replaced by Colin White for the time being. This is where we're at with Valtteri Puustinen. Can you be effective over that long span and get out of the valleys of your performance. Because while, yes, his underlying numbers are good, I mentioned it multiple times on this show already. In only 5 minutes, he has no points in his last 9 games. If he falls off, there are players that can come up and take his spot. Penguins have an option at the ready, potentially. Sam Poulin, we talked about him last week. He's starting to gain traction at the AHL level after being out injured earlier in the season. He has 8 goals in 20 games at the AHL level this season, and he plays a game that should, not saying it will, but it should translate well to the NHL level. He's tough on pucks. He's willing to go into the dirty areas, specifically in the offensive zone. He loves to get into the corners and win battles along the boards. That is a game that should translate for the Pittsburgh Penguins and should translate in their bottom 6. So he is not necessarily needing to play with star players to get production. Poulin has been a very big piece of the Wilkes-Barre Penguins over the past week, and he's certainly risen his stock west in Pennsylvania with the Pittsburgh Penguins. So there's an option down there. Now, Poulin plays left. Puustinen's right now playing the right. Poulin can also play center, but the point being, Puustinen is not solidified simply because there's no other options. He needs to start putting the puck in the back of the net. He does. Because, yes, while the process, as Mike Sullivan says, leading up to a goal is there, he's performing well. He's playing better in his own zone. He's not giving up a bunch of stuff, and I'm sure playing with Lars Eller certainly helps that, considering how good Lars Eller has been throughout his entire career as a 200-foot player. But Puustinen is getting an extended look at the NHL level. He's in one of those valleys. We've seen it a couple times this season, like I mentioned, with Ryan Shea and Radim Zohorna, that they want you to play through that valley, and they want you to come back up on the other side and regain the, I don't want to say, they want you to regain the level of play which you had when you initially got called up. That initial burst that you had when you got the opportunity. That's where they're at with Puustinen. He's fine underlying-wise. He's gained the trust of Mike Sullivan. He's starting to get more and more ice time per game, which is something that, to me, is one of the clearest indications when you look at over a 3 or 4 game span, him now going up from 7 minutes a game to having 10 minutes, 9 minutes, 8 minutes even, getting that increased ice time, even if it's just 2 or 3 shifts, getting those increased shifts, getting that increased ice time, that is a big thing that really lends you to believe that Mike Sullivan believes that Puustinen is doing the right things. And he'll get rewarded for it on the score sheet eventually. The problem is, he hasn't in 9 games. They need him to do it for them to continue to give him opportunities. The process is there for Valtteri Puustinen. We've seen the shot for Valtteri Puustinen. I think that's another big thing for him personally. Going forward, his first 10 games, he had 21 shots on goal. He was firing the puck away time after time after time. Part of that was he was on the Penguins' top power play unit. He has since been relegated off of that unit, but he only has 11 shots in his last 9 games. He needs to start taking more opportunities. He needs to start taking more shots. He needs to start getting a little bit more aggressive, in my eyes, to be able to continue to contend for a roster spot with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But when I looked at his numbers, I wasn't discouraged. His underlying numbers are great. The process is great. He doesn't have a point in 9 games. That's going to be a huge point of contention for him going forward. Because right now, Penguins are in the midst of a 3-day break. They come back on Friday, play on Saturday and Friday, and then they have another long break. 3 games in the next 16 days for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He doesn't have that many opportunities. But in the meantime, Kyle Dubas is sitting up on his perch, getting ready to make some decisions about this hockey club. Now, I understand Valtteri Puustinen is a young player. Even if he gets sent back, doesn't mean that it's the end of his story, certainly. Doesn't mean that it's the end of his story this season with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Could get called up a little bit later in the season. But I do think, while the underlying numbers are great, while the performance is great, while it seems like Mike Sullivan is starting to trust this young kid more and more as time goes on, he needs to start doing what he does best. He needs to start doing what got him to the dance in the first place, and that's scoring points and getting on the score sheet. Pens are outscoring opponents 6-3 with him on the ice alongside Lars Eller on the third line. That's good. But as we've said about this team over the last couple of weeks, they need more. It's fine. It's good. It's not bad. You're not a liability, which is a good thing, but the bar has to be higher than that for Valtteri Puustinen. It has to be. And you got to see him start scoring the puck in the back of the net, and you got to see him start setting up players like he was when he first came up. 9 games without a point. It's interesting to see that he's getting more responsibility. He's getting more ice time with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I'm interested to see how long of a leash he gets if he doesn't put points on the scoreboard, puts goals in the back of the net. That's what I want to see. But it seems as if, even without the point production, he's getting opportunities. He's being trusted by his coaches. And that is a huge thing for Valtteri Puustinen and his staying power at the NHL level. That's going to do it for this episode of Ice-Burgh To Go. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, you can find us on YouTube at Inside the Penguins or anywhere you get your podcast from by simply searching Tip of the Iceberg. That's it for this one. Penguins practice today at UPMC Lemieux Sports Complex. They're scheduled to practice tomorrow as well before their game on Friday night against the Florida Panthers. Another slow week for the Pittsburgh Penguins, but we'll keep pounding out content for you because we enjoy it and we love it and we can't get enough of it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.